Up here. Thanks everyone who can make it and listen to this conversation. I'm Cameron Stevenson, writer for the Below the Beltway, and this is Nina. I always
Burley,
just call it Burla. Sorry, I just call
Burley,
you Nina.
Burley
Burley.
football player.
Oh, of course, of course. Author of the American Freak Show, in addition to several other books, other publications. Just a resident expert on oligarchies and what people can do to take them down, and how we're lacking in letting them succeed. But Nina just wrote a really, really good piece. If you have a chance, I invite you to check it out on Jeffrey Epstein's connections in Davos. Davos is a big economic forum. It's where it's held every year. Um, and up until his last days, it's something that Epstein was intimately involved with as he was making himself just a man of the world, I guess. But Nina, yeah, can you talk a little bit about what you found and how you came across it?
Well, yeah, we were looking at the emails, the texts, the oversight committee dump, the Epstein estate, releases, and there's a lot of material in there that is quite interesting, and we found, Davos was last week, right? So we found mentions of Davos in the texts, and in the scheduling emails that Epstein's office was. We also have access to those. You can find those online on these releases. And what we found was that, like the Council on Foreign Relations, like the, Treasury, which he managed to visit personally, like the UN, which I'm going to write about eventually, that Epstein had his sources in there. He was embedded really in the UN. He was a mover and shaker behind the scenes. We found that he was really involved with the Davos for at least 10 years, I think, but he became he among his friends. I mean, one thing I say is like the European sort of technocrat elite, the EU leaders, especially the Scandinavians for some reason, were really strangely enamored of this raunchy Brooklyn accented sex trafficker. They thought he was cool. I don't know if they were servicing, if he was providing women to some of them. I mean, we're not going to go there, but they're all over his emails and his texts, and he's networking with these guys. The president of the European Council stays at his Paris apartment during Fashion Week, which we know Epstein used Fashion Week as a pickup time. Um, and the diplomat, the Norwegian diplomat, Rod Terje Larsen, who has been lionized in stories about the Oslo Accords. There's a play about it that Epstein actually financed, and there was a HBO special. He was, a big fan of Epstein, visited his house 20 times. And the president of the World Economic Forum, which puts on the Davos annual event, was a buddy of his, and you can see him, meeting him at his mansion in New York. You see him texting or emailing with Epstein up until I think literally like 3 weeks before he was arrested at Teterboro in 2019. And that man, a Norwegian politician named Borg Brende, is still the president. Is still the president of the World Economic Forum. Is still running Davos. And Epstein was so tied in with this Davos leadership that no less an eminence than Larry Summers, the former president of Harvard, the former U.S. Secretary of the Treasury. In these emails, you can see him begging Epstein to get him an invitation to Davos in 2019. And you see Epstein responding and saying, well, I'm really sorry. I had 4 invitations to give away. I've already given away 6. And, you're not going to make the cut because they're interested in current rather than former. And he uses that language. And it's like, well, what he means is you're a former Harvard, your former treasury, so you're not, big enough for
up
them
there.
right now. And so, he's like the gatekeeper even to a major figure in American politics.
Right.
And and then but he says, well, but I'll try for and then Summers is like, oh, well, that's too bad. Can you try for next year? And literally again, like weeks before the arrest at Teterboro, he texts his buddy Larry Summers and says, "You're in for 2020." And Summers is, happy about it. And then if you Google Summers, it's Larry Summers 2020 Davos. There he is giving
There you
speeches about recessions or, the coming, the pandemic was like right just starting in that part of winter of 20,
Yeah.
early winter. And so he's, talking about that and talking about hyperinflation and et cetera, and hyperglobalism and all these, Davos topics. And meanwhile, what you can see is actually there are other texts with like between Steve Bannon and Epstein in the previous Davoses where he's texting the people and saying, yes, I will repeat what I said about Berg Brende. Sorry, I see that just in a second. But he's texting with Steve and or some other guys, and they're like, you're at Davos? And he says, no, my Paris apartment is the suburbs of Davos. That's where I hang out. Like he's not going to sit there and listen to these boring speeches from, the technocrats and so on. He's in Paris hosting, guys who might want to have a little fun while they're over there at the Swiss chalet, and it's too boring, so they're going to go buzz over to Paris and hang out with
right.
Jeffs. Right. So the question is, Berg Brende is the president of the World Economic Forum. And if you look at the article, it's the American Freak Show article. Just Google the Davos American Freak Show. It'll come up. You'll see how Epstein had co-opted him as a pal and how he was getting tickets for Davos for his friends through, I assume, Borg Brende. And Borg Brende shows up at his, this is one of the great sort of scheduling emails. You can see, I don't know if I think we put a link in the article. You
Yeah.
can see the scheduling email the scheduling, it's not an email. It's like his schedule for the day that Leslie Groff would put together, who, by the way, is still in Connecticut, a respected housewife or Connecticut, mansion dweller, never been charged. And she knows everything. And so here's the scheduling email. And it's, Borg Brende, 8:00 p.m. dinner. And then during the day, it's like meeting with redacted. And then there's there's a redacted teeth cleaning and hair at Patrick. So basically these are redacted are all these girls that they're moving through the mansion or,
Right.
whatever, the 66th Street apartment where we know that he was trafficking all these Eastern Europeans. So literally on that very day, it's like the main business that Jeffrey's doing. And then Borg Brende's coming for dinner. And I think somewhere in one of the Borg Brende mentions that Steve Bannon and Wolf are also sitting around waiting for him. So, he was part of the club.
Yeah. Well, and I think what this discovery really helped highlight for me was that, even at the time of his arrest and death, Epstein wasn't some disgraced figure by any means. He wasn't, he
Not
hadn't,
at all.
he was, and based on this and even the way he was attempting to do things like buy the New York Post and do other big moves, he was working with Bannon to improve his image and they were helping each other. It seems like he was really trying to set himself up to be an international kingmaker of sorts, and even extend his
I think
trafficking operation.
he already was. I mean, what's so amazing about this, and we've covered a lot of again what I was talking to you about before we went on air. I'll just repeat I agree that this is a sex trafficking case and that the survivors need uh closure and so on, and they need to name names and they
Yeah,
can't because they've been the lawyers are getting their cut of everything. And but it's not just a sex trafficking case. It's also an international affairs story.
yeah,
And there's so many points where if you look at the texts and the emails and the the things that he was involved with throughout the teens, after he comes out of Palm Beach prison, jail, the sleepover, whatever they call it. His access to these international people, his access to Saudi princes, his access to the European leadership, his access to the UN president, his access to American political establishment people expands exponentially after the prison time. And it's just it's like a complete mystery, like how this happened to me. Like you can see it's happening if you put, and it's very difficult for me with just I have amazing researchers working on a lot of this stuff with me. It's difficult without a team to put together when he was meeting with certain people, what was going on in the international landscape, the international affairs of the United States and of these other countries that he's actually affecting or trying to be involved with. And the Drop Site News, Ryan Grimm and his team are really doing that job. So I recommended the reader or to your viewers here that they do look at Drop Site News, because they have a whole team that's putting this together. And what's fascinating is the New York Times could be doing it, and they're not. And they've really, they finally dove in to the Epstein story a month ago, I think, where they put all their good investigators on it, and they did it as a sex trafficking story. Yay, great, overdue, but they're terrific reporters there.
Yeah,
but they don't do this other thing, which is you see that he was like foreign relations. Les Bell, writer for the New York Times, eminence affairs for never. He's Epstein. He plays the Council on Foreign Relations. He gets being a CIA visit is the other Council on Foreign Relations. The CFR is in action. And the Washington Post reported on it a while ago, and they said, he only showed up twice. No, he was arrested. Yeah, there is a bad.
You're getting a little.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
All that.
No, saw the hazards of reporting on location.
I'm not in the land of the free right now.
Yeah. No, but
I could. You know what? I could. No, I couldn't. I could try headphones. You want to hold on for a second?
Yeah. I can give some background on some other pieces. Okay. Let me just take this moment to break down a little bit about Nina's piece and how it correlates with what we're seeing in the media ecosystem right now in the United States. Because, what Nina found, it's, first of all, it is something that New York Times, Washington Post, that they should have uncovered. They should be making these connections with the Davos men and reporting it. And, in their failings, she is able to find it and report it. But we're seeing organizations like TikTok are also being bought by far-right media owners. And we're seeing a lot of Epstein coverage be suppressed on places like TikTok, where there's supposed to be a more democratic exchange of information. And then you couple that with the Washington Post ownership, the New York Times hesitancy to upset the president in any way, and you see a real suppression of this information, which is why it's so important that Nina's able to do what she does and get the information out, why Drop Site News does such incredible work, and why it's important to hold these people accountable, because even the information we've gotten so far is less than a percent of what the government has in relation to the Epstein files. They've released 20,000 documents out of 5 million. And they have, really, it seems, no intention to release the rest, because people like Nina are going to continue finding things as more information comes out. And yeah, as I guess we can jump back in. Where were we?
Can you hear me now without an echo?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what people missed, but I was babbling on there with an echo. So if you have a question, put it in the. If you have a question about, yay, no more echo. Yeah. So I mean, we all are looking at these records, and as they come out. But obviously, I would say that after, before Venezuela, as they did the Venezuela operation, you could see the attention to this starting to wane within like Congress for sure, because like the women, it was Republican women who were like, "This is sex trafficking. We want to know what's going on." Who pissed off Trump so badly. Even Lauren Boebert, our temporary hero, is like, I don't care. I don't give a rat's ass about the Epstein files, right? Because now, oh my God, we have a national emergency going on in Minneapolis. And before that, we did this big international stunt using some of our war toys, which Trump has access to at any time. And so, they kicked it off the front burner of the media, and they kicked it off the front burner of the political. I mean, who's talking about Epstein at Davos when you're watching some goon shooting an American unarmed citizen,
Right.
and
Right.
wearing gear that you wore in Fallujah and stacked. And those, the New York Times. I mean, the one thing they're doing is examining those images and the clothes that they're putting on and their gear, and like who's going to pay attention to that? I mean, I mean, I don't know if they're doing this because of the Epstein stuff. I think I don't even think they care. They're just barreling ahead. It's like barrel ahead. Next, what can we get away with next?
Well,
and here they are. They're getting away with it. And, hopefully, and we were talking about this before, you're in Washington, and I'd love to hear what you hear, but my Washington people inside the, Beltway are in, like, they're like, yeah, Trump lost, man. He has to talk to Waltz. He has to pull back. He had to fire his, disgusting little stuntman, Greg Bovino, and maybe Christie will be in trouble. What do you think?
I mean, honestly, they are place settings, their dressings on this entire performance. Kristi Noem, she's not, by all accounts, Corey Lewandowski is running DHS. She's just the poster child. She likes being on camera. And if they have to sacrifice her, they'll find someone else who has Mar-a-Lago face that they can stick in that spot. The real problem with both of these things, with the failure to release the Epstein files and with the murder of people on the streets, is the same core issue, which is that the president is being allowed to act like a king, and that Congress is abdicating their responsibility to be a check on him. They could end what's happening in Minnesota today. They could force the release of the Epstein files today. But instead, Republicans who control Congress are allowing this to go because, like what you said earlier, they're in this bubble where they are just looking at political calculus and they see things as safe for them. And then they're reinforced.
You mean you're talking about the Republicans? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Let me just ask you, because you're in there. What actually could they do? You're like, you're saying they could shut this down immediately. And my sense is like, I don't know that the Trump administration will abide by anything they tell them to do. But I could be wrong. Maybe, I mean, he is talking to Waltz, and he is talking to Schumer. They're having their conversations.
Yeah. Well,
but they're filling the streets with these people who are dressed for Fallujah, who have no training and have been given billions of dollars worth of gear that they don't even know how to use.
Yeah. No, this is a topic for another day, and then billions more of this money is just being funneled into private companies and corporations.
Yeah, we were just talking about, my husband and I were talking about this earlier. Like, how happy are the weapons makers?
Right. Or even
the guys who make the laser goggles and all the other stuff. Yay, great, we're getting money.
Right.
And it's because this is the problem. I mean, it's a much bigger problem than just Congress doing this and that. I mean, we have a giant amount of money, taxpayer money, that's been spent on weaponry and war stuff and for years, for decades, right? And we have the more weapons spending in this country than the 10 or 50 countries after us. I don't know. It's a huge number. And when you have that, and you've got somebody like this guy in charge, it's going to get used. And he doesn't want it. And the thing, they don't have a war to use it on, and he
Not
doesn't
as hard as they've been
suppose it.
trying.
So, well, I don't know that he wants to have a war because he can use it on his own. I mean, this is a domestic operation, and that there's this great book by Greg Grandin, Yale historian. I recommend everybody to look at it, even though it's very depressing. And it's called the end of the myth, I think. The title will come to me, but anyway, Grandin, terrific book, won awards when it came out 5 years ago, and it's about the myth of the frontier and how the U.S. has always had this like violence and because it's multi-ethnic and multicultural, and all of these things within the country, there's always been this tension, and there was always a steam valve for it with these wars, or with starting with Manifest Destiny and like moving west, and then you could kill Indians, and then you could kill you could go and kill the Spanish people in the Philippines, and that they reached this like with the wall, with Trump's wall. And it's like at the end of the wars in the Middle East, which were not, successful really. We've ended that steam valve isn't there anymore. And so there's this, it's a really, really interesting theory.
Okay.
And that these people are, we have all this weaponry, and now you're seeing it. You can literally see it in live, on live video, American men, with this gear that they would arm people with going to Fallujah and Afghanistan, now being worn on the streets of America. And yes, they do. There's the question, like, who do we kill next? Our own population? Well, actually, that's what we see happening, right? I mean, they're not killing. They've only killed. Well, they've killed more than two. Apparently, there's a whole list. But they're killing these protesters. They're also, I'm sure, killing the people they're dragging off, and we don't even know what's happening to them in the concentration camps.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're in trouble, man. And I don't know, without leadership, without people stepping up in Washington. You're absolutely right. I don't know if Congress could rein.
Unfortunately, it's a question we don't know the answer to yet, because as of yet, they haven't tried. They haven't done anything. I mean, Trump is a bully, which means by definition, he is a coward at heart. And usually when someone plays chicken with him, he blinks. He backed off of Greenland as soon as the EU stood up to him.
Yeah.
He backs down whenever he's actually legitimately challenged. And Congress took the opportunity to do that instead of, I think most Republicans who are afraid of the retribution from Trump's base, because any opposition to him comes with death threats. It comes with harassment. People attack their families. Not to say that they shouldn't stand up to him, just that's the calculus they go through. And that's the people who maybe wish they were well-intentioned. And then there's the ones who see this as a political benefit, a way that they can come out on top. And that's something I've been following in the Oversight Committee is, Representative Summer Lee on the Oversight Committee. She's been pushing to subpoena
Bondi.
Yeah, she's been trying to subpoena. She's been trying to hold Bondi in contempt because she's been avoiding the subpoena charges.
Yeah.
Representative Comer, who chairs the committee, he was able to push through contempt charges for the Clintons, but not Bondi, who are in violation for the same thing for the same amount of time. The only difference is that would be going against Trump, whereas this is, holding the Clintons in contempt is, attacking Trump's political opponents. And so by doing this, they're weaponizing the Epstein files and turning it into a partisan tool to attack and
Yeah.
completely leaving the victims behind.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. I mean, the victims are left behind, and they're using it as a tool. That was always the plan. I mean, that's the plan since they said they were going to release it, because they've convinced their cult that the pedophiles that this is a case of pedophiles, and that they were all Democrats, and that's what they were going to go after. So. And then, oops, well, Trump is buddies with this guy and best friends with him for so long. And what they do is they send the FBI agents out to, incredibly, why this is like another thing that people don't talk about anymore. What is it going to be in there with relation to Trump? I mean, they put FBI, I mean, it's been reported, right? 1,000 FBI agents put on this on 48-hour shifts in desperation and panic. And going through and just being taught how to use some kind of like what do you call it? Microsoft document.
Oh, the redaction tool.
Yes, to go into redacting his name, and they're not done with that, because if there are 5 million more pages, there's probably more to look at. But I despair that they're going to get anything more on him out of there. Maybe. But it certainly would have been something that the Democrats could have tried to do before, I suppose, if very paying attention to Michael Wolff, before the election last, in 24, he was out there with the interviews with Epstein. Epstein was his buddy. They were, they chased women together. And the whole network of these model agencies that Trump had, and Trump's model agency, but Zampoli had a model agency. Jean-Luc Brunel had the model. That's all these, all under the aegis of, moving girls around. And,
right.
One of the there's a little side story here that I just want to mention. I can't remember her name. Becca Day on Substack has done this incredible 3-part story about Paolo Zampoli's model ex-girlfriend, who he found when she was 15 and brought her to the U.S., Amanda Ongaro, and she was his wife, or I guess they were married, and they have a child together. And then he just got sick of her. And they stopped being together in the last couple of years. And he literally because she's a Brazilian citizen, literally ICE put her in detention for 3 months and moved her. She's been deported to Brazil without her kid. And this is Paolo Zampoli, who's like on the the Trump Kennedy Center board. He's Trump's special envoy to Europe or something. And they just let it happen. It's like moving the Tate brothers in. Like, oh, we have the power. And this is the thing. Like, what's the point? This is their mentality. What's the point of having power if you're not abusing it? That's how they operate. I think that's what they're doing.
Constantly using it for your personal benefit.
Using and abusing. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I had not heard that. That's unreal.
Yeah, look it up. It's I cannot believe that Times and mainstream media needs to report it, because she's been literally separated from her child. And I had interactions with Zampoli when I was writing a book about the Trump women. I actually visited him in New York, and he had a diplomatic passport from Dominica and was in the UN, and actually had the Caribbean flag hanging from his Chelsea apartment or townhouse. He knows where the bodies are buried too. He's supposedly, he claims that he introduced Melania to Trump, and lots of questions about that and about when they actually met.
Yeah. Well, you don't think that's all broken down in the Melania movie?
Yeah. Well, I did a little column on that this week, and I would say that I interviewed some people in LA who know things about it, and it's kind of interesting. wait, who is this, Nina? It's the wife of Paolo Zampoli. And you just Google Paolo Zampoli wife deported, and it should come up. It's a Substack, terrific Substack series. But yeah, I mean, I would say Melania is a pretty boring person. I found she's beautiful, introverted, not terrifically talented as a model because she's super introverted, and has, she's incurious. She's not a terribly interesting person. Loves the sound of her pearls and diamonds clacking on the vanity. And we'll put up with a lot to maintain that luxurious lifestyle. And there's this lacuna in her story between when she left Slovenia and washes up in New York with Trump in the 90s. There's like 5 years, 6 years where you're like, what is she doing? And if you're going to do a documentary on Melania, that would be included, and that would be very interesting to find out. And I'm not the only person who's tried and failed. The Washington Post reporter who wrote her biography said she had an easier time reporting on, princes, royals, and like CIA agents than on her.
Really?
Yeah, they blacked out her. It's a dark period. You can't find very much about her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she came in during Epstein's Eastern European heyday.
100%.
When they were,
she is, yes. Yeah. Whether or not Michael Wolff is, Godspeed to Michael Wolff that he goes to the court with us and forces them to come and testify. But I don't know that he introduced. I wouldn't go so far as to saying he introduced her to him because I have no idea. But yeah. I've written that she shows up during this period of self-commodified and also commodified by pimps, basically women, beauties from these Eastern European countries and Russia very much, into New York, hoping to find their fortune in the modeling agency, but also to find, capitalist success with a capitalist husband.
Right.
And she arrives in that time period. So, and we know that Epstein was moving these women from all of those countries into New York, and he was housing a lot of them on the 66th Street apartment and in these fake model agencies that they were operating, or suspicious modeling agencies, or dubious agencies. So I think it's very likely that she would have met him. It's possible because he was all of these women were in that world with him. So I think she could very possibly have known him. But I wouldn't go out on a limb and say she did, because I don't know that.
Well, they've hidden the background on that so effectively. It sounds like that it might not it might not be discovered until
it's a door they don't want to open. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess add it to the 5 million pages.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking for a while here. I don't know if we want to open up any questions before we wrap up. I don't know if anyone has anything. But I do want to thank you for taking the time. It's been, as always, great to talk with you and catch up and pick your brain.
Likewise. Thank you for hosting me. And we'll do it again soon. We'll do it again soon on the Freak Show.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, when I get back up there. All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Good seeing you. Bye-bye.
You too.